A closer look at Jin Ping Mei Chapter 45, The Beautiful Simon Family. It is said that Simon King just entertained the Kiao family from the Qing dynasty yesterday. And today they also welcomed the Kiao family from the Qing dynasty. There are too many royal relatives. No wonder Simon King spoke lightly of the Kiao family. I had a drink at Zhou Nangshuan's yesterday. And there was an update on the weather when I got home. The new relatives I haven't seen before left early. This morning, the Yeoman was on holiday, so I didn't go either. Is his heart really so plain? Not necessarily. It's like something pawned by the White Emperor's relatives, a marble screen with mother-of-pearl embroidery and gold that can be placed on a table. 3 feet wide and 5 feet high, and 2 gongs and drums connected with the bell. After Simon King paid the money, he immediately wiped it clean and placed it in the front of the hall. He looked around and asked the percussion musicians to start playing. Ecstasy is easy to imagine. What he was drunk and obsessed with was just the example in the lawsuit, the power and glory of the royal family. Even though the emperor's relative is already declining and going downhill. What does that matter? Isn't Simon King, a commoner, already so glorious and glorious that he looks down on these royal relatives? Earl Ying's urgency was already written in Chapter 43, but the inside story of his transactions with Li Zi and Huangxi was not revealed until this chapter. This time it was profitable. Huangxi had already sealed him with 10 taels of silver to thank him. But they also wanted to borrow another 500 taels from Simon King to make up 1,000. The reward for Earl Ying was 5 taels of silver. Earl Ying handled the matter smoothly. He asked Li Zi and Huangxi to prepare gifts, and called 6 players to deliver them to Simon King's house early the next morning. While talking and laughing, he persuaded Simon King to lend out the 4 gold bracelets with some extra money to make up a total of 500 taels of silver. He knew that Simon King didn't want to let Jin idle. Simon King was really happy. He accepted the gift and called Li Zi and Huangxi to have dinner and drinks together. Wine is the matchmaker of sex, and wine is also the matchmaker of wealth. Earl Ying is the matchmaker of wine. With him, this banquet can be delicious. Sister Li Gui hurriedly said goodbye to Yunyang and Simon King. The secret was revealed to Earl Ying at a glance. Of course, Simon King's family relies on their power, but Wang Sangwen's money is also impressive. Simon King likes Sister Li Gui's intelligence, just as he knows that Earl Ying is talking nonsense and reaping some benefits, but he doesn't take it seriously. This time Sister Li Gui asked for mercy for Jia Huier, and he agreed immediately, regardless of the mood of the woman in the back house. Zhang Ailing once said that China is a love-scarce country, and the vigilance against overflowing emotions is engraved in our cultural genes. Needless to say, blind marriage are not much better. Meng Yulu and Simon King. The girl was married for the 2nd time and a boy was a concubine. They met once before getting married. What seemed like a modern blind date was actually a partnership, not love. On the contrary, the brothel has become a breeding ground for love. Thinking of Du Shenyang, who sank her treasure chest in anger. Isn't it the reason why readers sympathize with Du Shenyang's love being let down? However, as the saying goes, bitches are ruthless, and brothels are originally places where hypocrisy is performed. Otherwise, where would the treasure chest come from? Simon King is a man who owns a brothel, and most of his emotional education was completed in the brothel. Li Jiar, the 2nd wife, was from the brothel, and Zhuo Daiwer, the 3rd wife who died, was from the Nest, which was a lower-class brothel 1 level lower than the Li family brothel. Li Jiar had plump skin, Zhuo Daiwer suffered from 3 illnesses, and Simon King, who Zhang Si said beats his wife to destroy his wife, picks up people and sells them to the matchmaker if he doesn't like them, never sold them. Li Jiar also takes care of the Simon family's account books. This is not necessarily very affectionate. It may be the inertia of habit. Li Jiao's niece Li Guiji is a master of love, but Pan Jinlian was only able to express her love. But she was really angry and sad, coaxing Simon King to laugh and serve her wine. At that time, although Sister Li Gui was just performing, she might not have some sincerity. After all, it was Simon King who groomed the cage. Simon King's favor and Pan Jinlian's provocation made Sister Li Gui's jealousy both a performance and event. Unfortunately, as soon as newcomer Li Ping appeared, Sister Li Gui's thoughts disappeared. When Simon King caught an adulterer, Sister Gui said, "Bah, okay, there's still Mom. This happens to people in our courtyard all the time. It doesn't matter. Just let him make a fuss and make noises. Just don't come out." Sister Li Gui was sober to the point of being cold. Education in brothels is such a reality. It was also through this education that Simon King seemed to realize the difference between family and brothel. Family can provide legal heirs, and family is one's own community of interests. Looking for warmth in a brothel and excitement in a family is absurd. However, Simon King is still used to managing his family in a brothel manner. The women in the family, if they like her and are moved, will either give her sex or money to build a beautiful Simon family. For Pan Jinlian, nothing was given enough. She always asked for jewelry and fancy clothes during sex. Even if the Simon mansion has a little monthly money, it can't control the luxury goods expenses. For Li Pinger, both of these are useless. She needs warmth and companionship, but also a sense of security. In Simon King's noisy mansion, with people coming and going and gongs and drums noisy, she was the only one who guarded the little, pitiful and lovely baby all day long. The deeper the love, the more uneasy it becomes. No one could share her mental anxiety and uneasiness. Simon King couldn't do it, and she couldn't bear it. Wu Yunyang can't, even if Yunyang is willing to protect the child. The two cannot get close. Needless to say, Li Jiar, Meng Yulu, and Sun Zui, Pan Jinlian next door yelled at Sang and Huai, and her resentment made Li Pinger suffocate. After drinking some wine, complaining, and relaxing the tense nerves a little, Wu Yin'er gained a lot from the small solace. A set of dyed gold satin clothes, 2 gold sweat towels, 1 tael of silver, and 1 the Songjiang Quoshi, which weighs 38 taels, is made of plain white damask. Wu Yin'er's well-behaved and calm attitude made Sister Li Gui, who left in a hurry, not appreciative of her. So, what? It's just that there are no wealthy guests like Wang Sangwan who are waiting impatiently. With the gorgeous clothes, Wu Yin'er is like wearing armor for battle. From now on, she can put on a fashionable white silk coat and catch the eyes of men. The Lantern Festival has passed, the moon has faded, the lights are still bright, and the newly dressed women go to Wu Dejinzi's house to visit relatives. These welcome butterflies, surrounded by green pearls, and thank the spring breeze. What a beautiful Simon family. Is Simon King happy to be surrounded by so many beautiful, charming, smart and considerate women? A closer look at chapter 46 of Jin Ping Mei. If there is one person worthy of admiration, it must be her. It is said that the emotional tendencies of the characters in Jin Ping Mei are very strong, and the result is just like Mr. Zhou Ru Chang's review of Dream of Red Mansions. Although it is authoritative, it is biased, but this review about Chun Mai touches my heart. He said, to Chun Mai, just use the out pen. Strictly speaking, this sentence comments on the writing method, but the word out captures Chun Mai's core personality characteristics. One Simon King entertained Earl Ying and others at the gate. Yu Xiao and other young girls dressed up were watching the fireworks behind the screen. While the book boy was sifting wine over the brazier behind the screen, Yu Xiao and Shadong had an old relationship. Taking advantage of the chaos, the two of them got tired of leaning together and accidentally knocked over a tin bottle of wine on the stove, causing ashes all over the floor. Chun Mai then scolded, "What a weird and promiscuous woman." When she saw a man, she became so evil that she didn't know what to do with her. She just pretended that the two of them had pushed the wine down, and they were still laughing and joking. I don't know what they were laughing at. She was so angry. It's all for nothing. She scolded her with just the right volume, and Yu Xiao ran away in a hurry. The book boy immediately went to reply, and Simon King didn't find out the reason. For those with a softer personality, even if they can see clearly, even if their master asks, they will pretend they didn't see it and refuse to cause trouble. For example, Yingchen and Langsheng were also present at the time, but they remained silent. Silence is the choice of most people. and protecting oneself wisely is the attitude of most people in the world. If you don't know how to behave, you will make a lot of noise, which will be known to everyone. Invisibly, you will create many enemies for yourself. For example, Song Huilian before. Chun Mei's scolding was not to provoke trouble or show off force, but to resolve a frozen situation. This is both beating and preservation. To Ximon King doted on Chun Mei very much, in Pan Jinlian's words. He wanted to give 10 to her. To sum up the reasons, one of them is that Chun Mei knows how to measure. Chun Mei kept herself clean, at least when Ximon King was alive. She is not like Yuxiao who can mess around with the servant in public. Yuxiao or most of us are the kind of people who can lean in mud and water to keep warm. Just as Zhang Ailing described the Hong Kong War, she said that many young people were eager to fall in love. In the dormitory after the war, male students lay on their girlfriends' beds and played cards until late at night, in a very uncertain mood. In a messy environment, it is easy for people to muddle along and seize the joy in front of them first. If Chun Mei wanted to, she could definitely be Ximon King's 7th concubine, but she still didn't. She has the sobriety of the Mandarin ducks and a dream of red mansions. After becoming a concubine, her status rose, but in the eyes of everyone, she was still a slave. And Zhao in a dream of red mansions is like this, and so is Sun Sui and Jin Ping Mei. The position of concubine was dispensable in Chun Mei's eyes. If you don't live openly enough, what about your concubine? When you meet a man, you become so evil that you don't know what to do with him. In her world, this was something worthy of contempt. She has a vision in her heart and believes that she will have a beautiful destination in the future. This is why Wu Yunyang refuses to accept that she is not worthy of wearing a beaded crown. For her, pride is the anchor of the soul. If you like it, it is poetry, artistic conception, and the nature of streams flowing to lakes and white clouds returning to the sky. 3. As a clerk, it is a great honor for Bai Si to sit in the front door of Ximon King's house and watch the fireworks with Ximon King. The 4th lady also refused to waste the opportunity. During the Lantern Festival, she invited several prominent girls from the Ximon family to her home for dinner in order to gain a closer connection. Several girls usually serve their masters at home, and now someone is drinking wine and having a banquet. This is recognition of their status by the outside world, and it is a matter of honor. Xiao Yu, who was in Yunyang's room this time, felt unhappy because she was not invited. So she could only torment Diane with the matter of getting her fur coat. But who to ask for leave from? Yunyang was not at home, so Li Jiar and Sun Sui did not dare to make the decision. Several girls refused to ask Ximon King directly, so they planned to ask Li Jiar to tell Ximon King. When Chun Mei heard about it, she scolded, "There are all sluts who have never seen noodles, never seen a banquet, and smelled something. I couldn't go, and I couldn't go to Yangji's house. They were all sneaking round. It's like that, I can even see it." Chun Mei scolded her for the 2nd time to stop the girl from begging Li Jiar. Not long ago, Li Jiao's girl Jia Hua, who was born in a court, was in disgrace for stealing a bracelet. She was usually shrunk, and her layout was not open at all. How could Chun Mei like her? This kind of Chun Mei is so similar to King Wen in A Dream of Red Mansions. King Wen once declared in public, "Give her the good stuff, and give the rest to me. I would rather not offend my wife. And I won't tolerate this." As proud as they are, they only want to please the noble self in their hearts, but Chun Mei was able to hold her own. It wasn't until the boy went up and got Ximon King's approval that Chun Mei slowly started applying makeup evenly into the room. Everyone had dressed up long ago and was anxious to have guests, but she had to slowly go to the room. But who dared to complain to her? Before Pan Jinlian entered Ximon King's house, Chun Mei followed Wu Yunyang, but she was not favored were used by Wu Yunyang. In Wu Yunyang's consciousness, as her wife, she did not need to form an alliance with any girl, and no one was qualified to get along with her as a friend. Chun Mei and Sun Sui also had a quarrel, and Sun Sui was so angry that she wanted to hit her with the handle of a spoon. After Pan Jinlian arrived, she and Pan Jinlian became allies, and of course she looked down upon Sun Sui. In the first battle with Pan Jinlian, she chose Sun Sui. After a small test, Sun Sui was beaten violently. In an environment where involution is very serious, if you hold on to Buddhist thoughts, it means that you have to step aside. No one in Jin Ping Mei is stupid enough to voluntarily give up his or her position. But unlike competing for fame and fortune, Chun Mei's collision is to gain some space for herself to breathe freely. Here in Chun Mei, just living is not enough. You also need dignity, sunshine, and a little news of spring. In the 5th chapter, when Wu Yunyang arrived at her parents' house, she scolded the little boy Dian with all her strength. Your master didn't ask you to send her to Li Geier's house. How did you send her away? She was holding a felt bag, but you still grabbed it with both hands. Go away. You poke your tongue at both ends. Work hard and show off your tongue. You are so lazy and greedy. I will stop you from moving. Talking nonsense. I don't believe you won't tell him tomorrow. Beat this deceitful slave to your rotten sheep's head, it doesn't count. Wu Yunyang was very angry with Sister Li Gui last time, not only because she couldn't keep her, but also because Sister Li passed Wu Yunyang and went directly to Simon King to plead for her to keep Xia Huer, who had stolen things, which made Wu Yunyang very embarrassed and even more embarrassing. The important thing is that Wu Yunyang discovered that although Sister Li Gui was her goddaughter, she still worked with her Aunt Li Jiar when it came to things, and she was a wolf with white eyes. She was not as considerate as Pinger's goddaughter Wu Yin'er. However, Dan was still rushing to see Sister Li Gui off. Thinking of this, Wu Yunyang couldn't help but feel angry and took the opportunity to get angry. However, I only dared to curse a few words as hard as I could in my parents' home. She consolidated her status as the main wife by being virtuous. She could ignore Simon King before, but that was because Simon King was at fault first and she took advantage of it. But now, these resentments cannot be expressed openly. If they get angry in Simon Mansion, it will look very petty. If it really breaks down, Simon King may not be able to help her speak up, and by then, he may even lose face. When she returned to Simon Mansion, she heard Li Jiar ostentatiously saying that Simon King had slept in her room. She said nothing. Then she heard that the 4 girls had gone to Bessie's house, so she scolded. It's the 1st day of the lunar month, and the 15th day of the lunar month. The temple gate is early, and some little devils have been released. The same emotion was still playing out. The same is true for scolding. Yunyang is breathless and can only use scolding to vent her anger. Chun Mei cannot bear to see the disorder and despicable theft in the outside world, so she uses scolding to correct her. Yunyang always likes to be alone to digest her grievances, but Chun Mei never allows herself to feel grievances. She has her own set of behavioral logic and self-consistency. Lu Chun Mei and Jin Lian are very similar. They don't have too many inner dramas and behave reasonably towards the world, but the difference between Jin Lian and Chun Mei is, Jin Lian always feels that the world has wronged her, and no amount of gain is too much. The kindness shown to her by the outside world will be interpreted by her as a kind of humiliation. Her refusal to be kind means refusing to be melted. To be melted is to give up the weapon of self-preservation. She has cut off her friendship with the world. No matter who stands in her way, she will be ruthless. The same is true for Wuhan University, and the same is true for Li Pinger. It is not easy to please her, or it is impossible at all. In this chapter, Yunyang expressed that she would give her a fur coat that was sold in Wang Zhaoxuan's mansion. She said, "It looks like yellow dog skin." Later, she changed a fur coat stored in the cupboard and said, "If you have the ability, I'll ask the man for something to wear tomorrow." Chun Mei doesn't have such deep hatred for the world. This time, I heard that Simon King had entered the inner house, and the other girls ran away. When they saw Lin Xiang taking off her shoes behind and couldn't catch up, they cursed. "You are all rushing to grab the coffin." And she said, "Thank you, sister-in-law, bye for you." Walk back slowly. She will not let the outside world mess up her rhythm. And she always has strength in her heart. Being able to accept the kindness of the Ben family shows that she still has a soft place in her heart. This allowed her to slow down her pace and stay open during the long journey, making her more likely to find the light in her life. Jin Ping Mei wrote about 4 lantern festivals in total, and this is the 3rd one, which belongs to autumn in terms of writing. Therefore, Although this lantern festival started in chapter 41, it does not end until this chapter. It looks noisier and livelier than ever, yet the tone has been toned down a bit. What aggravated this feeling was that Wu Yunyang called an old woman who divined fortune-telling on the street the character. Function of the fortune-telling old woman was greater than the character tension, and was just a starting point foreshadowing. This plot and Wu Shengshen's words in chapter 29 corroborate each other. A small guidepost given to readers by a novel, although the old woman's words were very artistic. When she mentioned Li Pinger, it's as good as Pai Hongluo, but it's a pity that the head is a little short. It still makes the readers sad that such a gorgeous sentence actually hides something about it. A cruel metaphor of life and death. The golden lotus came late, and there was no divination. She said that Wu Shengshen's words made her feel shaky in her heart, and she explained to herself, "Let it be buried in the streets tomorrow. Buried in the dead roads, and it will be a coffin if it falls in the ditch." As the first heroine, Jin Lian. This kind of explanation it's miserable in itself. Pinger and Jin Lian were once again exaggerated at the end of the Lantern Festival. And the misfortune of the ending was exaggerated. Chan Mai didn't show up, so she didn't need to show up. Her good luck, in fact, in this chapter or in her entire flying life, has been best explained by her words and deeds. A closer look at chapter 47 of Jin Ping Mei. Everyone is happy brought about by a murder. By the way, this time, the vision of Jin Ping Mei has been extended. It is no longer limited to the fight between wives and concubines in Ximen Mansion, nor is it limited to the officialdom of King County. Instead, it flicks its sleeves and begins to stretch the perspective to speaking of the city of Guangling in Yangzhou in the south of the Yangtze River. There is a Mao member named Mao Tingshu. People suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Is this going to take readers to see the world outside King County? But after reading it, you will find that the story this time is even more breathtaking. It turns out that even in the borders of Yangzhou, officials in small places like Simonsing are still able to take bribes and bend the law and communicate with each other, and he just settled an unjust case. First, let's sort out the outline of the story this time. This Mao member from Yangzhou City was nicknamed Mao Tingshu. The family has a lot of money and is quite good at poetry and etiquette. His wife was ill, all the family affairs were entrusted to his doting concubine Dao. The Mao family had a servant named Mao King. One day outside the Mao members, he saw Mao King whispering to Dao in the pavilion. So he beat Mao King. I vowed to drive him away. After all kinds of pleas, he was able to stay. And the disaster was laid from then on. One day, the Mao member's cousin sent a letter to Tingshu, asking Tingshu to go to Tokyo, one to play, and the two to seek their future. Regardless of his wife's dissuasion, Mao Yuanwei stubbornly wanted to find a good future in Tokyo. He was full of joy and seemed to have seen a bright future, so he ordered his family Mao King to pack their luggage and clothes. Packed more boxes of gold and silver, load a ship of goods, taken Tong and Mao King, and go to Tokyo. He asked his wife and concubines to stay at home and set off on a certain day. This sad and cruel story begins like this. Mao Yuanwei is probably the unluckiest protagonist in Jin Ping Mei. He wanted to go to Beijing for a good future, but he brought with him the most unreliable time bomb Mao King. Not to mention, by chance, he got involved again, pirate ship. Let's take a look at how sinister people are in this description. The two boatmen are both evil people. One is named Chen San, and the other is Wang Ba. As the saying goes, if you don't care about your family, you can't care about the family ghosts. This Mao King hated the family master deeply and wanted to avenge him for being scolded a few days ago. He kept silent and said in his heart, "It's better for me to do this and work with two boatmen to kill the family master and push him into the water. I will share all the property with the house. I will kill the sick woman again when I go back. Even the Dao family will bear this share of the property." In this way, the poor Mao member was killed by his vicious domestic servant. The following description is the popular version of murder and robbery. At nearly 3 o'clock, Mao King deliberately called out thief. Mao Tingshu woke up from his dream and went outside the cabin to take a look. He was stabbed in the lower part of the neck by Chen San with a sharp knife and pushed into the flood. When Tong was about to leave, He was knocked into the water by the 81 sap. The three of them opened the box and cage in the cabin and took out a fortune of silk, gold and silver, as well as satin and clothes, and divided the points equally. The second boatman then said, "If I keep this cargo, I must be guilty. You are one of his family members. If you carry this cargo to the market and sell it, no one will believe it." So the second boatman took all the 1,000 taels in the suitcase. The gold, silver, and Mao members' outer clothes were distributed, and they punted back. This Mao King took another boat and took it to Lynching Wharf. After passing the banknotes, he loaded them into the official store outside King County and unloaded them. When he saw the old merchant in Yangzhou, he only said, "The owner of the family is on the back boat, so he will come. Look how neatly this is done without any further trouble. It is so thrilling to read and make you sweat." The author also has a sigh here. As the saying goes, people are as like this, and the laws of nature are not yet the same. Poor Mao members are always kind, but once they are harmed by their servants, they will die badly. Even if they don't take the advice of loyal people, most of them will not be able to escape. The final conclusion of this unbearable situation is that most people cannot escape, which makes people feel inexplicably sad. However, the real excitement is yet to come. After Tong, who was knocked into the water, was rescued and escaped, he accidentally saw the two murderous robbers one day and filed a complaint with them before the execution court. After the criminal court accepted the case, they arrested two gangsters, who then confessed to Mao King. Mao King fled everywhere and finally found his neighbor Lisan and his wife. Who is this Lisan? Let's see. Lisan lives next door to Hondao Guoguo on Lion Street. His wife, Lisan's sister-in-law, has a very good relationship with Wang Liuer and often visits Wang Liuer to keep him company. Of course, there is no need to say more about what kind of person Wang Liuer is. Ever since, this thread was connected to Master Simon again. Let's take a look at what Lisan said after hearing the reason for Mao King's sad face. "It doesn't matter. The Han family next door is the outer room where Father Simon was sentenced to death. And he is also his family's clerk. And he is in contact with my family. You're very good. You follow everything. If you want to keep you safe, no matter how many things you break, teach my family to go over and talk to his family. This full of confidence, this familiar operation mode. What you want to say, this is the first time someone has solicited such business. And I, the reader, don't believe it." In the end, Simon King really intervened. In a few strokes, he placed all the blame for the murder on the two boatmen, although they were not, and just sentenced the robbers to death. And the case ended decisively. In short, this final verdict can be called a perfect case closure except for the Mao member, who died unjustly. It seemed that the two murderous robbers were executed and hundreds of taels of silver were recovered by the government. It seemed like the case was being handled in a serious manner. But the real instigator, the real #1 murderer, was quietly slipped out of the net. And every official involved quietly and effortlessly got the blood and money of those who had corrupted and perverted the law. Feel at ease and dignified. Even later, the unwilling Tong appealed to the prosecutor's office, the so-called procuratorate, and the case was forced to be reaffirmed. Simon King and Jia Tixing appealed to Grand Master Kai Jing and Kai Jing, and the trial was postponed again. A human life lawsuit dragged on and really disappeared. This time in Jin Ping Mei, the calm storytelling tone is a bit creepy. A bloody murder was turned into a glamorous and profitable trick by a group of officials and ordinary people who were good at making money through crackpots. At this moment, who can remember the Mao member who died unjustly? Everyone was happy to have earned their share. Mao King took out 50 taels and a few pieces of satin left, and thanked Lisan and his wife. 12 taels and another 50 taels of silver, and for sets of colored clothes. Mao King took 1,000 taels of silver, put them in 4 wine jars, slaughtered another pig, and carried them to the head of Simon King men. Everyone under his command knows that Daiyan, Ping'an, Shatong and Qintong have to pay for 10 taels of silver. Daiyan is on Wang Liuer's side, and the latter has already asked for another 10 taels of silver. They declined each other. After half a day, Simon King had no choice but to divide the gifts equally. between the two families and put 500 taels in the food box. Jia Tixing received a few more glasses of wine before saying goodbye and getting up. Simon King immediately sent Diane to get the food box and also served it as wine to be carried to Jia Tixing's house. Jia Tixing accepted it at the door, took the reply note, and rewarded Dan with 2 taels of silver, and to platoon soldiers with 4 coins, all of which were nothing to mention. Look, everyone has a share and everyone is happy. Your life, which is just a member of the Mao family. What does it mean in front of the money that everyone can get? If you look carefully at every bite in this time, you can feel that every word is a story. When Mao King's lawsuit came out, someone from the Yemen secretly informed him. Is the person who informed people really warm-hearted? Or is he making a living out of it? And this Mao King committed a murder. The first reaction was not to run away, but to go around asking for help. Is this kind of thing so common that you don't have to worry about killing someone to pay for it? The person who was asked for help, Lisan, really said it doesn't matter and recommended him. Wang Liuer was said to be both a concubine and a clerk in conversation. But Mao King seemed to understand everything, and he didn't ask any questions or be surprised. All kinds of things were as familiar as watching the current market gossip and social hotspots. There is also Wang Liuer, who can be called a hero among women. As an aside, I think she is the most suitable person for Simon King in the whole book, both in body and soul. Look at the description of interceding for Lisan. Wang Liuer took out 50 taels of silver from the box and showed it to Simon King, and said, if things are done tomorrow, I'll give you 2 sets of clothes. Simon King looked at it and said with a smile, what do you want with these things? This Mao King is a member of the Mao family in Yangzhou, because he and 2 boatmen killed the family owner on the boat and threw them into the river for money and life. Take this. Stability is a lingering crime. Those 2 are real criminals. The 2 boatmen saw that he had 2,000 taels of silver on him. What to do with all this money? Send it to him quickly. After hearing this, Wang Liuer immediately understood. How good is the tacit understanding between the 2 people? Simon King not only sold her personal favors for her personal charm, but also taught her how to get more money. The 2 of them making money together is the right way. And I think that at this moment, Wang Liuer was taught the most important lesson in life. In this lawsuit, a businesswoman officially entered the official shady business, and she has since mastered the ability to obtain money. The password for more wealth, but Simon King could not predict that after he died a few years later, this woman would turn around in the most ruthless way and only focus on money. It was not in vain to get his true inheritance this time. In the end, only for that the helpless little Entong sighed. He was the only one who got nothing except his loyalty and conscience to his master. This little person was the weakest glimmer of light. A closer look at Chapter 48 of Jin Ping Mei, Game of Thrones. It is said that wine is a matchmaker for sex, and money is a strategist. A case of murder and smuggling is an annotation of birds die for food, people die for wealth. Everyone in the world knows that gods are good, but they can never forget their fame. Mao member Wai Mao Qingshu was unwilling to be a small rich man and died for a greater world and fame. The main culprit, Mao King, reported a personal grudge, killed people and expropriated goods. In order to protect his property, he paid off his head and used Mao Qingshu's 1,700 taels to cover the expenses. Everyone was very happy to share it. How to classify them depends on, first, their role in the murder case, and second, how much power they have in the case. The main criminal, Mao King, had the greatest merit, but he was too far away from the center of power. He received 100 taels and was sent to the poetic Yangzhou to hide from the limelight. Later, he made a fortune from this. The presiding officers Simon King and Jia Tixing had great power to decide the direction of the case, and each received 500 taels. Jia Tixing bought a future for his son. Wang Liuer was the matchmaker and Mao King was able to connect with the key figure Simon King. She got 100 taels and 8 sets of good clothes. Make a living, cut clothes, and build a small rooms, and life becomes more and more prosperous. The government's prosecution, section level, rest, observation, etc. were all taken care of, and about 400 taels of silver were allocated. Lisan and his wife are the best helpers. Without them, everyone would have nothing to do and their power would not be fulfilled, but their roles are interchangeable. In the end, I got 50 taels and some silk. In this wave of robbing the rich and giving to the poor, the cakes were divided extremely fairly, and everyone was satisfied. People can't help but want to sing about the prosperous and peaceful times. Today is a good day. Everything you want can come true. Today is a good day. Let's open the door to the house and welcome the spring breeze. Only one person is dissatisfied, and that is Mao Tingshu's little boy Tong. This loyal servant is like Zhao Da in a dream of red mansions, with only his master in his eyes and heart. Although Chen San and Wang Ba paid for Mao Tingshu's life with their lives, how can it be said that the injustice was avenged when the bigger main culprit Mao King slipped through the net? King County was colluding, so Tong looked for another way, and Tong's petition was handed to Zhang Yushi's hand. In the Ming Dynasty, the censor's office was renamed the Duchy Yuan, and together with the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple, it was called the Three Law Departments. The head was called the censor of the left and right capital, and there were 13 supervisory censors in the country. There are 110 more censors in the Imperial Palace. Those who were ordered to inspect local areas were the censors for inspection, the censors for silt inspection, and the censors for water transportation. The patrol censor is only a 7th rank official, but he can picket and impeach local officials and supervise government affairs. It is equivalent to the supervisory committee in later generations, with great authority and weight. Jin Ping Mei describes the evil of human nature. As I read it, the sounds of collapse, shattering and tearing when the 3 views were destroyed kept ringing in my ears. The author wrote about hundreds of people, and a good person can count them on 10 fingers, but Zhang Yushi may be one of the few positive images in this book, and he is a good person. After reading Tong's complaint, he joined Jia Tixing and Simon King, who had no regard for human life, were corrupt and perverted the law. Speaking of which, we have to review the history of Simon King's fortune. He was born a small businessman, paid off official debts, and remarried the daughter of a local Jin family. He used his daughter's marriage to get into contact with Admiral Yang, and also had contacts with the court, so he managed some official affairs in the county and talked things over with others. Money. Isn't this the same as the main business of Lisan and Yingzhu? It's just that their abilities and financial resources are limited, so they can only hang around Simon King to make trouble and make money. Therefore, Simon King is familiar with various hidden rules in the officialdom, can quickly identify key figures, and has developed a strong temperament personality and the ability to do things with deep cunning. The in-laws lost power, and like Mao King, Simon King, who was willing to spend money to save his life, managed to get out of trouble. Later, he used Li Ping'er as Starry to bribe Grandmaster Kai, and he got the post of Deputy Punisher for nothing, and climbed to the top of his life. After officially entering the officialdom, he changed from rich to noble. However, when the critical moment came, he was still Kai Taishi's helper. Jia Tixing has always controlled King County, and his connections and influence are deeply rooted in King County. Zhang Yushi's ginseng was still on the way, and Jia Tixing's informant Mr. Li had come to report the news. Jia Tixing reported to Simon King, and they looked at each other in silence. But a person with a Bangshan background has managed to crawl into this political network. How can he fall in front of hundreds of taels? People who value human life more than heaven would dare to bring random lawsuits, not to mention he has the trump card of Taishi Kai. Waking up from the fright, Simon King once again revealed his strong character and cunning motive side, and quickly made a decision. I will prepare some gifts for you and send someone to the central government of Tokyo as soon as possible. So, Jia Tixing made a hasty speech and took 200 taels of silver into silver pots home. Simon King has a piece of gold inlaid with jade and 300 taels of silver. The Jia family sent a member of their family, Jia Shu, and Simon King came here to ensure that the gifts were packaged properly. Simon King wrote a letter to Butler's Eye, and the two of them hired a headman early on, and went to Tokyo to work on a starry night. A bright mirror hangs high to restore justice, It is clear that Zhang Yeshi is upright, but the effect is to force Simon King and Jia Tixing, who did not take the initiative to pay tribute, to spit out half of the stolen money. It is self-evident who is the helper. The author writes lightly, just like when he wrote about Pan Junlian, Wang Liuer, Mrs. Lin and Simon King's bed. It was so ordinary that it was as if they were eating home-cooked meals. After becoming public, there is no need to write a letter or send someone to come forward. And of course, there is no need for phone calls or WeChat. It is easy to fall into the trap after the fall. Real bosses have their legends in the world, and people in the officialdom can naturally feel their invisible control. A disciple who had nothing to do with Jia's family presented the official amulet, and Jia Yukan perfectly settled Zhu Pan's life lawsuit. In the eyes of Tai Shikai's housekeeper, Mao King's matter was as trivial as sesame seeds and mustard beans. Zhang Yeshi Shenbin hasn't arrived yet, so you can stay here for 2 days. Zheng Yu Shibin has arrived. When I tell the master, hand it over to Laoi Pavilion. He was told that the ministry knows. I sent someone here to take another note and instruct Yu Shangshu of the Ministry of War not to cover up his copy. Just don't worry about leaving it to your father, and don't care about other things. This world, there is always a corner missing. Good and evil go hand in hand, and it is difficult to have both virtue and talent. Most smart people don't take the right path, and most people who take the right path are ignorant. Zhang Yeshi did not understand the relationship between Simon King and Kai Taishi, had no idea about the enemy, and was slow to move. Shenbin is still wandering on the road, but Simon King has taken care of everything. Through this incident, Simon King and Kai Taishi became more closely connected. If the censor's impeachment wants to go straight to heaven, it depends on the expression of Grand Master Kai. Although the world belongs to the emperor, everyone works for the emperor. But whatever the emperor wants to see, Master Kai will filter it first. It's a pity that Entong's loyalty and Zhang Yushi's integrity were all in vain. This world is still the world of Simon King. Money captures beauty, power covets wealth, those who work for profit, those who help others, those who take bribes, those who support them, those who help others. Now Hong Hong takes turns to appear. The hand rises and falls, and the world is settled. The sensual and charming people continue to be proud of their lives, and all the gold bottles are left, and the years are spent. Destined wealth and wealth are coming quickly. It seems that Simon King suffered a big loss in this lawsuit. He was jumping up and down, but only got 200 taels of silver. But the more you use personal connections, the more troubles you have and the more contacts you have. From a probability perspective, there are naturally more opportunities. No, Libo was entertained by Butler's eye and spent a day's shopping. He had a sharp eye and copied a newspaper for him, which brought a huge opportunity. Libo said, now the master, the in-laws, and the Minister of Household Affairs, Mr. Han, are writing quasi-example in Shaanxi and other 3 countries. Salt cultivation was introduced, and each prefecture, and county set up charity warehouses to sell grain and rice. The private households were ordered to go to the warehouses to sell rice, ask for warehouse notes, and distribute salt to introduce salt. Old warehouse notes 7 cents, 3 cents of new granary notes. In the past, Wei En Kiao's father-in-law, Gao Yangguan, received the 30,000 granary notes and sent 30,000 salt quotations to the Ministry of Household Affairs. Now Kai Zhuangyuan has ordered to Huai patrol salts, and soon I can earn quite a lot of interest when I leave the capital. Before supporting Kai Zhuangyuan, it seemed that Simon King was cut off leaks and beaten by Kai Taishi. Who would have thought that this would become the most successful angel investment in Simon King's life? Kai Zhuangyuan served as the censor of the salt inspection. He passed through King County when he took office. Simon King Haoxing entertained him and received approval for 30,000 salt quotations, which was announced 1 month early. Simon King is about to be upgraded from the richest man in King County to the richest man in Shandong. The upgrading and killing monsters in the middle is very dangerous, and compared with the benefits, it is really not worth mentioning. Worshipping ancestors during the Qingming festival seemed to be a foretelling. The numerous cars, crowds of people, and loud gongs and drums all seem to foretell his rapid rise to prominence. The author is always willing to make a lot of mistakes. When in Tongkai was still looking for Zheng Yeshi, he couldn't help but write how Ximeng King spent this Qingming festival. Wife, money, house, seat, and children are really 5 sons who have passed the imperial examination. If they don't comfort their ancestors, it will be like walking at night in brocade clothes, planting pines and cypresses, building roads and building monuments, building tombs and burning incense, slaughtering pigs and sheep, setting the table. The Ximeng family sent out invitations and moved all the food and entertainment to the newly built Chanzi Roll shed house on the tomb. Fans of the past, popular top names, old friends, in-laws who have some connections, colleagues who serve Kai Teishi, and friends who are concerned about everything, all come to support. I don't know how much it will cost at the end of the day, but it has made a huge contribution to the GDP of King County. No one is happy that Ximeng King's family has been promoted and made a fortune again, even if they can't earn a few wages by carrying sedans and repairing tombs, or selling some meat and vegetables and incense candles to his house to make some extra money. They can just watch the excitement from a distance and take a look at their beautiful concubines. The sedans passed by one after another, and it was worth receiving a few scoldings from Zoli. Counting the list of visitors is very meaningful. Wu Yunyang brought as many as 14 named female family members. Some people couldn't help but comment, after the Qingming festival, there is only one person named Da Guizi. Here, with a stroke of a pen, it always serves as a contrast to the Qingming festival. Similarly, there are 13 official guests with names, Ximeng after King's death. His uncle was the only one left. There are several fewer brothers in Riji. The 4 girls Chunmai, Yuxiao, Yingshan and Langshang all appeared beautifully. In addition to the familiar Li Ming and sister Li Gui, there are several more musicians and fans. They all came, naturally, after ancestor worship. There was an outing. Yunyang invited the guests to the rolling shed at the back. Entering from the garden, there are pine walls and bamboo pots on both sides, and endless flowers and plants around. It is precisely the pink willows, green orioles, and weaving are all created by Dongjin. At present, the performers are performing in the booth to watch the guests. For young children were playing and singing in front of the official guest table in the front hall. The 4 singers took turns passing the wine. Chunmai, Yuxiao, Langsheng and Yingchun are all on top of the guests, holding a pot and pouring wine. He stood at the head of the eldest sister's table and ate soup, rice, and snacks together. Pan Jinlian went to the garden to play on the swing with Yulu, eldest sister, Li Guiji, and Wu Yin'er. The daughter and the beautiful concubine share the pink hair and play together, and life and death share the same color. This class boundary has been completely broken down, and the orthodox stricture has been completely forgotten. Who said that the Central Plains is full of rational beings? On this land, all restrictions were broken hundreds of years before the Renaissance, and there was absolute equality and freedom. If you don't believe it, just look at this scene. Thousands of flowers sprout stamens, and thousands of trees sprout buds, which is called the letter of spring. This is a good time for feelings to grow. On the next Qingming festival, Li Yamen was moved by a glimpse of Meng Yulu. Pan Jinlian and Chen Jingjing seized every opportunity to tease and play with each other. By teasing Brother Guan together, the 2 of them joked together. The golden lotus made a circle with the peach blossom and quietly put it on Jingji's hat. Since then, there has been no solution to the peach blossom calamity. Qiuju's repeated reports were of no use. Only death can separate this man and woman who are lost in desire. After successfully securing a match for Brother Guan, Wu Yunyang truly loved this child. Before the door was closed, Wu Yunyang suggested that Brother Guan should not go to worship the ancestors for fear of making a mistake. Ximeng King used his usual uprightness to reject Wu Yunyang's proposal. Li Ping'er, who is still adapting, has no opinions of his own and just relies on others' arrangements. Sound the gongs and drums, and beat them together. The official brother was so frightened that he knelt down in the nurse's arms. He just gasped and didn't dare to move. Wu Yunyang ordered Ping'er, scolded the nurse angrily, and asked Mrs. Liu to treat her illness. Simon King's family it was lively again on the next Qingming festival. Wu Yunyang's own children were also frightened when they visited the grave, and everything was the same as today. But at that time, she was even more anxious and angry without any support. Simon King worships money and believes that money can make ghosts grind. We heard that the Buddha in the West just wanted gold to pave the ground. The 10 palaces of the underworld also wanted some tents. Wu Shengshen's prophecies came true every time. Since he was born rich, he used his good luck wantonly. Probably, Li Ping'er and Guanche were both included in this wealth. In the reality of materialistic desires, wealth they can buy beautiful wives, concubines, and children. But when fate wants to take them away, all the wealth in the world cannot replace their warm bodies. Having a queen at the age of 32 is enough to comfort the ancestors. So there is he held a very lively Qingming ancestor worship ceremony, but sadly, he didn't really care about this child. What he wanted was his liveliness, his prosperity, his wealth. He just wanted to tell the world, the Simon family is in my hands. Developed. Then what else is there to say? Where are the generals and ministers of ancient and modern times? A pile of grass has disappeared in the deserted graves. This is not a good medicine for proud people. Good song has always been just a remedy for jealousy of frustrated people. Official brother, this child who needs the quietest environment and the gentlest embrace has grown up in the indifference of his father. Since birth, facing many crises in the backyard created by his father. Just like Simon King himself, and it's the same as an officialdom. The performance is beautiful, but the reality is turbulent. So what? All opportunities are born in crises. Just like Mao Tingshu's murder case, he was still in the shock of being impeached. But he turned around and retracted his original angel investment in Kaizhuang Yuan, which was 30,000 yuan, 1 month early. Is there any business more profitable than this? Only when you have money around you can you afford to play the game of power and live a life full of flowers.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.